So we are on patch 420. Both of them are exceptionally strong top laners. Numlocked and Tundra play both champions.
Indeed. So we will be following through with the LeBlanc ban out aimed at Chriso in the mid lane here. And Warwick meta consideration comes out from FM. So far, banning away Gnar and Warwick, which are these blanket picks, not aimed at a specific person.
Yeah, so we saw a lot of Warwick and LeBlanc at IEM San Jose. Pretty much both of those champions were 100% pick and banned when you looked at every single game. There were so many games from both. The poke from LeBlanc is so strong. Warwick's damage spike at about level 4 out of the jungle is not to be overlooked.
So next ban and the final ban from CHK Gaming will be that Orianna again aiming that mid lane ban at Chriso, followed up by the last ban of Morgana coming in from FM eSports, so a little bit different here.
Yeah, so the Morgana ban is against Zodiac. We know how strong it is. We saw it yesterday.
Yeah, there was no small surprise after the display. He had Dark Bindings landing left and right, but first pickup from CHK Gaming has been picked up as the Xerath, going for the mid lane for Alchemist. Yeah,
Alchemist is a big proponent of Xerath in the middle lane. It pretty much is his champion right now. It can be picked with any kind of composition. And it's great wave clear, it's great poke, it synergizes with what we're expecting on 420. Not too surprised by seeing that, and the bottom lane is going to get locked in by FM.
Yeah, we actually have the Graves coming out here, even though Lucian and Corki are open, and something we've specifically seen from this tournament here at Four Nations is the priority has been on that Graves, it has been on Lucian, and Corki's been taking the back burner, but that will be paired up with Sona here.
Yeah, so Graves and Sona are incredibly difficult to kill in lane. Graves' passive is going to give him extra armor, Sona can heal him up, and the burst between the two of them is insane, especially at level 6, crescendo, collateral damage can instantly remove somebody from that bottom lane matchup, so FM already prioritizing their picks for Samwise and Billy.
Well, CHK have their response in the form of Lasagna picking up Pantheon here, who saw him play that yesterday in the second game they played. Of course, he took that away from his opposing jungler, and it is considered to be one of the best, if not the strongest jungler coming into the new patch here at 420, as we are playing on the 420 patch here at Four Nations.
Yeah, it is a big jungler on 420, and it's one of Dan's big junglers as well. He plays a lot of Lee Sin, typically hasn't played so much Jarvan, but has been picking it up. But we know Dan is the kind of player to play a lot of different picks. He's played Rammus before. We know he's got more in the bag. We'll see whether he actually brings up any surprise picks again, but no surprises yet, 5 picks in.
Yeah, so the Corki, of course, came out as well, coming in from CHK Gaming, and FM are taking their time with their following two picks, and they are going to wait it all the way down to the wire.
Yeah, they are, and neither team has picked up their top laner yet. We've spoken about how exactly both teams will prioritize top lane, and they're holding on because they don't want to have to pick Maokai. We know that Tundra doesn't really play Maokai as a top laner. He prefers to allow them to take Maokai on the other side and then pick something into it. So neither team really wanting to opt for a top laner, so I feel we're going to hide that down until the last pick from FM.
Well, FM here will be locking in the Ahri for the mid lane, so we know what the mid lane matchup is going to be here. Xerath versus that Ahri, and here's the fast swap up to the Lee Sin for the jungle for Dan.
Yeah, and at this point now, what did CHK go for that top laner as well? Again, nothing really has been out of the meta right now. Dan has got his solid pick on Lee Sin, and Chriso has been playing Ahri all the way through the stages of this tournament. So if they don't opt for a Maokai here, if they opt for something that's a little bit more aggressive, the Lissandra has been played a lot. We're seeing a lot of AP champions up in that top lane. It depends what Numlocked wants to play. At this stage, they've got to be careful because Tundra is going to have something prepared for this situation. Lissandra would probably be the best pickup in that top lane because it's very difficult to deal with 1v1 in the top lane. So right now, it's all on CHK.
Yeah, this is these next two picks are going to drive the last pick from FM here, and we'll see what they choose to throw into that top lane because, as you mentioned, Tundra is that guy who they really want to focus around in terms of getting that counter pick. As you can see here, even from how the coin toss went, you mentioned they wanted to be on the purple side so they could get this very last pickup. It will be Yorick and Veigar coming in here from CHK.
Yeah, and that is not, there's no support on the side of CHK right now. They're obviously running something that they've been practicing. It's likely, I would imagine, to be Xerath in the support role, perhaps using that stun, because otherwise why would they leave their mid laner for the end?
Yeah, I mean, like, I was talking in passing to Tundra, and he was just like, dude, Veigar support is super good, and I'm like, I'm not sure, but they have locked in the Veigar here, and if you're going to give DX Alchemist the Xerath, which would make sense, we could be seeing a Veigar support in the bottom lane.
Yeah, I'm struggling on this one as to why you'd first pick your mid laner then. I guess Xerath is incredibly safe, so we'll see the swap arounds happen now and see exactly where it lies, but I think you might be right here. It would make a lot of sense, but we have our team compositions locked in. FM pretty much have this massive spike at level 6 when it comes to all of their champions. Mundo becomes insanely more tanky, the gank potential from Dan and Chriso as well to roam, and we've already spoken about the bottom lane, so look for them to put a lot of aggression out at that level 6 mark. On the other side of things, Choke have a pretty good comp when it comes to wave clear. The Yorick is going to just bring back somebody like a Corki who's going to be able to do a fair amount of damage, but it's not the typical hyper carry on Yorick that you'd see as that AD carry role. So Choke have a good kind of AoE team fight kind of set up a little bit when you mix the damage from Xerath and Pantheon together.
Yeah, I'm interested about the scaling on this team as well, because you look at Veigar, he's typically the champion who you throw in mid lane, and if your name's Pobelter, then you're like the only guy who will pick that one up, but we actually have that being in the support role, so he's probably not going to be farming up his Q here. That's fairly unlikely. Of course, he has the Event Horizon, that big AoE stun, but what do you feel like is going to be the role here, not only for the Veigar, but the scaling of the entire team? Because we have the Yorick here, which is like the quintessential lane bully.
Yeah, the problem with the scaling here is that I don't see what Veigar's going to bring to this table other than obviously the stun, and that is going to do such a good job of controlling areas around objectives. You look at a dragon area, you look at a baron, it's going to zone away so much space that then Choke can kind of follow it up, and we know this kind of patch is all about poke. If you can zone and put people into one area to poke them down, it's a great setup for a dragon.
Well, anyway, guys, we are just about ready to head on to Summoner's Rift for the very first game in the Grand Finals here at the Four Nations between FM Esports and Choke Gaming. Make sure to join in the conversation on Twitter, of course, using the hashtag L4N. Get your thoughts over to us, because we are about to turn up the heat as we get into this best of 5.
I am really looking forward to seeing exactly how Veigar builds, because, as I said, outside of a stun and a fair amount of burst, I would imagine, in the early game before people get a lot of health and a lot of that kind of base resistances as well. But Lasagna, the charm.
He's straight too far into the enemy jungle. Here comes the charm. Here comes the first blood. Everyone chimes in for an assist, and that is a fantastic start for FM.
Brilliant start for FM. They actually do something completely different to every other team that would normally do. They group up in the top side of the map and wait for somebody to go in. I wasn't expecting Lasagna to kind of edge his way up so far, and I don't believe FM actually traded anything in exchange for that. They didn't even burn a summoner.
Yeah, that was as flawless as it could have gone, and the best start they could possibly hope for, other than a clean ace. But Zodiac again has come in here with the sweeping trinket and has now swapped up to a warding totem.
And we actually saw that yesterday.
Yeah,
that was something Zodiac did in that support role. He picked up a sweeper trinket just to get any early vision control, swaps it out for the laning phase. It's because he's not buying any wards in his kit. Not a lot of supports would do anyway on the current patch. So the fact is they just want that extra ward for the laning phase. But speaking of wards, as you can see, they did manage to get some vision control while FM were in the top side of the jungle. So Choke will have the read on this start by Samwise and Billy.
But take a look at this bot lane here, because they are heading around the corner to try and disrupt this Gromp take from FM. Samwise and Billy Fufu, they have spotted this out. Here comes the Event Horizon, and that is enough to deter them. So neither team in the bottom lane will gain an advantage, but look at the health bars already from FM.
Yeah, their health bars are a little lower than they could be, and it's going to be a little while before Billy hits that level 2 as well. So no chance of sustaining that up without using health potions. But the one thing to note on that is typically when you take Gromp as a support, you use a health potion anyway. So really all they've done is deny the experience.
Yeah. Which is pretty serious.
It is.
Because you would like to get that level too. But of course, the other thing in that scenario is who you're going to give the experience to. In this case, no one, because no one gets the Gromp.
But at the same time, Choke didn't really gain anything from their bot lane either. So obviously, this is a big indicator now when you look at the side of FM is, why would Choke go aggressive into the enemy jungle when they can just take Krugs? It's because Pantheon's starting on Krugs. And that's a big read here. And a lot has been spoken about how you can read people through the early jungle. This is going to indicate to both Chriso and Tundra that they've got to be careful after that second buff timing, because Pantheon is going to be likely around that topside jungle.
Well, we are just about ready to head back into game, and the pause will only be for a couple seconds, so we'll be getting right back into the action. So right here. The bottom lane will be going head-to-head. And now, what is Lasagna's play? Hasn't gone for either of his buffs, but he is circling around the bottom lane.
Ah, okay, so this is a level 2 gank coming out of Lasagna. This is the other side. We thought it would be predictable.
Well, now we might have some summoners burnt. In fact, both of the flashes from FM's bot lane. Billy Fufu gets knocked up here. The damage coming in from the Phosphorus Bomb and Lasagna's Spear Shot won't be resulting in a kill, but he'll have to be chugging through a lot of those potions.
Double summoners used. That was a very valuable gank there out from Lasagna, and it's a very different kind of timing to how we're used to. So the discussion was that it could have potentially been predictable, but there goes Lasagna, completely changes things around.
But take a look at this one, Stress. Dan has gone straight from his red buff to the enemy blue buff, and seeing that early play, which did result in those summoners, Lasagna is going to head straight there himself, but he's going to be too late, and Dan gets away with the steal.
He does. He's got to clear this, so there's a lot more experience on those small camps, so they get the read on it. They know exactly now the timing. Dan has only just left the blue buff area, so they do get the steal, but at least Choke for themselves have got the timer on that jungle. However, this is kind of just a mental game of chess, but look at the difference between junglers already. 9 CS to just the Krugs for Lasagna. He is having an awful time in this jungle. Did get the summoners in bot.
Yeah, this gambit, we'll have to see in a couple of minutes' time whether it really paid off. If the bottom lane seriously gets ahead, then we can definitively say yes, but take a look at this, Stress.
Yeah, Dan is invading onto the jungle. This is really smart. He knows Lasagna's low.
And he's low and only level 2. We'll be getting the Tempest and the Cripple. Still has the Sonic Wave and lands it, but with Alchemist coming in from around the side, doesn't go any deeper. However, he will be clearing away some of this extra experience away from Lasagna.
Yeah, so at this point, Lasagna is so low on mana that this is the choice that you have to make with Pantheon a little bit is, do you use abilities to block more, or do you have to take a lot more damage through the jungle? And they knew he was going to be low on one of the two, so forces Lasagna away. I want to kind of talk about this bottom lane, as we see bottom lane.
Yeah, Billy Fufu literally just walks into the event horizon, but yeah, Zodiac will be getting down the harassment.
Yeah, this bottom lane, Sona and Graves is very difficult to kill, and I find it very ambitious that Zodiac would pick a support with this stun that in the laning phase isn't really going to have the presence enough to kill Graves and Sona without them making a massive mistake. So it's a little bit of a surprise to me that we're seeing this kind of all-in kind of burst as opposed to the burst that FM have. It just feels like a lane that really isn't likely to die due to sustain.
So now in the middle lane, we do see Dan cycling up here. Likewise, Lasagna in the bottom lane. A perfect place to stand if you were level 6 and had an ultimate. However, Billy Fufu heads into the bush, doesn't get the wall down, is now being chased down by the bottom lane. Lasagna is in range and gets the spear shot for the kill. Samwise likewise gets caught in the event horizon, but will not be taken out. A nice 1-0, and now Lasagna is heading back into the game strong.
Yeah, and at this point, FM were pushing up so much in the bottom lane without the right wards that was the mistake that Choke were looking for, and Lasagna knew he had to get back in this game after burning the flash early on. A very easy gank out by Choke that, honestly, I feel like FM should have read.
So Lasagna, while he gets something in the bottom jungle, Dan makes sure that every time Lasagna makes a play, he'll be losing something in return.
Samwise is
bottom lane though, again the event horizon lands, and the auto attacks are raining down, and the baleful strike followed by the auto attack finishes him off.
Another mistake out of Samwise. He's all the way into the lane trying to farm, and then uses quick draw. He knows his flash isn't available. That is just over aggressive in this bottom lane. He's trying to play too greedy.
This initial play by Choke all the way from Champion Select definitely seems to be throwing FM off kilter. Literally just from the playstyle, from what we've seen out of Choke for the last couple of months, is you play it safe in the early game, you play it smart in the early game, like Strike said on the analyst desk, and then you come back with these reactive plays, you get ahead, and then you start being proactive. They've just been all systems go from minute 1.
So let's take another look at some of the other lanes, because this has been all about bottom lanes so far. In the mid lane, you can see Chriso is ahead on CS. He's actually already been back to buy as well, so he's pretty much up in that bottom lane. The same kind of story for top lane. Tundra is up against a lane bully, and Mundo typically has a fairly weaker laning phase. It's much more passive. You've just got to kind of wait it out and become a tanky monster.
Well, Numlock now is putting the pressure onto Tundra, but he'll probably be shrugging that off with Sadism available now in the top lane. Has only just used his teleport to get back up there, so we'll probably be using those health pots, and of course the ultimate to keep himself healthy.
So, from our junglers, Dan has picked up mobility boots before opting for any extra damage from the warrior enchant. And what that means is Dan is going to look to get into as many lanes as he can for potential ganks. And you can see Dan is being already aggressive down into the enemy jungle, getting as much control as he can. On the other side, Pantheon opting for warriors. He's going for more damage early on. He'll rely on his ultimate at level 6 to get him into the lanes.
So in that middle lane, in fact, talking of items, we do have DX Alchemist not even going back yet. And with Pantheon on the opposing team, this is, remember, patch 420. So Pantheon is able to get that dragon down at a very early stage in the game. And we may see the recall coincide with a potential play there. Either way, the second round of buffs is spawning, and Dan will be taking away his own.
So, I realize that the reason Ari is ahead on CS and had the time to back is because she backed earlier after getting the initial first blood. So that's why the advantage has been given in the beginning of the game, but Dan is in the top.
In the top lane, will be landing that Sonic Wave, and Tundra is dropping low, but he's sustaining through all the damage by Numlock. It will not be enough damage to get through this one, and the last cleaver to the face will finish him off in a pretty smooth gank from Dan.
Oh, bottom lane though.
Oh, here comes the ultimate, the primordial burst by Zodiac, followed by the rockets as well by Chewed Up. It's enough to harass them down, but still taking the advantage in this lane.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see Lasagna put his effect down in that bottom lane. All the way back in top lane, again, Dan is using those mobility boots just to great effect right now. He's counter-jungling with them. He's getting into the lanes, gets a kill for Tundra up in that top lane, who is going to become very difficult to deal with here because until Yorick gets a lot of damage, there aren't many champions that can actually deal with Mundo.
Again, an Event Horizon in the bottom lane. Here comes the Valkyrie. Samwise will be blocking his path with a great quick draw, but he walks back in. Billy Fufu walks straight into Zodiac. Samwise now going 1-on-2. He's in a healthy position. Smokescreen comes out. That'll be the end of the engagement. Samwise still isn't level 6, but look who's here. Dan is cycling in from around the side. Here comes the Dragon Strike. Zodiac will get the Event Horizon down, but there's the collateral damage we were talking about. Samwise can't quite get in range for the second kill onto Tudor.
Yeah, did not quite get it, but Dan, again, using those mobility boots. It's a great early buy for him that is just working out wonders. He's managed to kind of turn that bottom lane, and initially, the fact that they'd used heal in that bottom lane, but Alchemist might be caught out.
Oh, they have caught a bead onto Alchemist in this jungle. Chriso follows up with his ultimate, but with Lasagna coming in from around the side, we'll have to use the last Spirit Rush to get back to Dan.
The problem is Lasagna took a lot of damage there as well, and Chriso was kind of umming and ahhing about whether he wanted that, but FM are playing this bottom lane matchup a little bit smarter now. They knew they had to get Dan down to the bottom side of the map because they were getting caught far too often by the Event Horizons, and despite getting caught, Graves is still up in CS on Corki and Veigar right now. And the fact of the matter is, FM have burned so many summoners in this game that Choke should be ahead down there.
So, now, a lot of people have gone back to base, excluding Alchemist, who at the 10-minute mark, this was his first back. His counterpart, of course, picking up that needlessly large rod. Probably going to be seeing a Deathfire Grasp out of him not too soon. But look at this. The Morello Nomicon has been picked up here by DX Alchemist. I wonder if we're going to see that double book build we saw in San Jose.
Honestly, I think Xerath is going to need a lot more upfront damage. Something like a Rabadon's Deathcap or a Zhonya's Hourglass. You need that big spike for poking people down. Morello Nomicon is good for the cooldown reduction, but at that point, you're kind of relying on hitting a lot of skill shots. So I would like to see Xerath pick up a big chunk of damage, but we're getting around that kind of time that the next kind of kill in the bottom lane may decide the first dragon of the game. You can see Dan is lower side of the jungle, so is Pantheon. These junglers are mimicking each other on their camps in the lower side, and it actually looks like Lasagna is looking at ult here behind the turret.
He has the Grand Skyfall ready to go, but
the
Dan
pings
is
are down.
Also here. Here comes the Grand Skyfall, but now he can see the opposing jungler. Billy Fufu dropping low, but lands a crescendo onto Chewed Up. Lasagna drops low as well. Here comes both of the teleports from top lane. This is about to get real messy, real fast. Zodiac goes down. Dan will also drop in turn. A 2-for-2 so far. And now Samwise has to back off. Tundra as well is also in tow. Super low as Numlock is keeping up the aggression. The Omen of Famine comes out. And there goes the last Omen to take him out. Another rocket from behind. Tundra also dropped low, but will not be falling down as he pops his ultimate.
Yeah, he pops Sadism, but all the way back at that beginning of that fight, Dan went very aggressive onto Chewed Up and couldn't quite get the kill on Zodiac. So let's take another look. You can see as the Grand Skyfall comes in, FM land a crescendo on shoot up only, but the stun and the Pantheon ult mean that they can't get the damage as a follow-up, and Billy dies immediately. From this point, watch Dan as he goes aggressive here into Zodiac and doesn't actually, you know, he gets the kill, but he doesn't get what he wants from that, which is the escape on the follow-up. Yorick appearing into the lane gives the Ghost onto shoot up, and there's too much damage to focus on.
Well, what does that mean for the big picture here, Stress? 5-5 kills so far, but FM are actually still leading in gold, only around a 700 gold advantage. Nothing to write home about just yet, but Lasagna aggresses onto Dan, will be safeguarding a way back to his ally, but right into the event horizon from Zodiac, and DX Alchemist will be quite happy to take that kill on the silver platter.
Yeah, both supports showing their focus in that middle lane, but the one thing that Choke will have far more often is going to be that event horizon. Compared to Crescendo, they're able to set the Veigar up so much more, as it's going to be, you know, very low cooldown in comparison.
So now Choke are posturing around the Dragon area. Lasagna definitely thinking about it here. They do have the positional advantage, considering Dan is taken out of the action. And Lasagna will be starting this off, but Billy is hovering around the area. Samwise is down to the bottom. They'll have to get their act together if they want to try and contest this.
Yeah, oh, Event Horizon used already. That's a big signal, big indicator to FM that maybe they've got the position to go for this.
Oh, the collateral damage and the buckshot is not enough to steal, and now the follow comes in from Lasagna, and good juke out of the way, but there's the Dragon Strike knocking it back into the pit and safety. Shoot-up picks one, and now the chase comes out. Pantheon comes in back for more. The Super Mario comes out, picks up one, picks up two. There's the double kill. Now Tundra and Chriso coming into this fight, but Tundra is so tanky. This is the cleanup, 1 versus 4, make that 2 versus 4, pick up 1 kill, and now DX Alchemist is late to the party. Can he do anything else?
Right the way at the beginning, Dan tried to kick, I believe it was Lasagna. Oh, here comes the Righty Arcane.
Oh, here comes, comes down onto Chriso, picks up that kill, and that's what he had in his arsenal, so arrives late to the fight, but evens it up.
Dan just couldn't land anything in that fight. The kick was a little bit misplaced all the way back at the beginning of this Dragon. Dan was not here yet, regardless of his mobility, and Lasagna goes aggressive, and from here the AoE turnaround is so strong out of Choke that Dan just melts in front of everybody. Lasagna has a safe place because of the kick to then re-engage on Billy Fufu. Event Horizon was back up, and from there, yes, FM are very tanky, but they got dropped so low. These are a couple of consolation kills. The Dragon had already gone over to Choke.
These are very, very sloppy team fights, resulting in kills going both ways, but Choke are emerging a little bit ahead in these, plus the picks that they've managed to accrue. And a couple seconds ago we were saying there was a 700 gold advantage to FM, but now look at the scoreboard, 1,500 in favor of Choke Gaming.
And for as bad a start as Lasagna had when you look at farm-wise, an actual impact other than those 2 flashes burned, he lost buffs. At this point, he is ahead of Dan in gold by about 400. Event Horizon again.
Dark Matter comes down onto Billy, but the charm will save his life as the Orb of Deception and the Foxfire comes across, but Dan comes in from behind, gets the Dragon Strike, takes him out. Zodiac will be soon to follow. Safeguard comes through, doesn't manage to land the Sonic Wave. Great sidestep by DX Alchemist, mitigates a lot of that damage coming through from FM, but 2-0 with a swift rotation to mid lane.
This is what FM need from Dan, is they need to land all of the skill shots essentially, and that was an easy one to pick up. But Alchemist dropping incredibly low, trying to hold it.
He does have his ultimate though, and will be landing onto Dan, picks up that kill. Shoot up now, looking for more. Will be connecting the missile barrage, but will not be getting another kill. So a 1-0 in that middle lane.
Up to this top lane, Tundra is still ahead. He's now 3-0-2, and he's going to become so difficult to deal with right now. Does pop his ultimate and he's just going to farm this out. He knows that Numlock can't do anything to him. And that is a problem for Choke. They have to now get more damage sources to actually deal with Tundra as they start to group. Teleports are about to become available for both top laners, so we may very well see another top lane play as we look for potentially you know, a turret either top or bottom.
Yeah, the Vision game seems to be what the teams are focusing on currently. Lots of pings going down on potential Vision places, but Choke Gaming are currently leading pretty significantly. A bunch of pink wards up and down the river and encroaching now into the enemy jungle. Here comes the Grand Skyfall though, right behind Tundra. He'll be running away from this one. Doesn't have the sadism in fact, and will be ticking down with the Burning Agony still on himself. Numlock is low, he has to be careful, but Tundra is literally just buying time now, and there comes the shutdown from Lasagna.
And that's just utilizing that the cooldown on Tundra's ultimate not being available. We thought maybe it would be a teleport play across the map. It's actually just the Grand Skyfall. Very easy pick up there. You could see that Numlock was shoving into the tower, allows for a fairly easy gank.
In the mid lane, Choke again making drags into the middle lane. They lock down Chriso and he drops where he stands. The chain CC is ridiculous as the right of the Arcane throws down those Arcane barrages. Will be doing a little bit of damage to Dan, but the middle turret falls and that was the objective.
This event horizon is so difficult to deal with that it actually doesn't matter that Veigar hasn't really got that massive amount of damage, because there's so much coming from Xerath and Corki right now. Look at their stat lines, 3-0-1, 5-0-5. It doesn't matter that Veigar's 0-4. He's got 8 assists. He's been having such a big impact on this game already that FM have got to pick their fights a little bit better. They've got to try and bait out the event horizon and then disengage.
And as a result of these constant picks and these constant small skirmish fights, there's been lots of kills exchanged back and forth. 22 kills in 18 minutes. And when you look at the rest of the game here, Stress, then with so many kills going down, that's accelerating the item build, and we're getting faster into that scaling.
But one problem is Samwise hasn't been able to finish an Infinity Edge or any complete item yet. As opposed to a Trinity Force, Sorcerer's Boots, and BF Sword Corki, he has a massive amount of damage, and we're only 18 minutes into the game. Typically, you'd only see the Boots and the Triforce finished right now for Corki, so the fact that Corki, while being behind in CS, is up because of kills is incredible.
So in the mid lane here will be FM just rotating into, I was going to say protecting the turret, but it's currently in rubble, so just trying to keep their side of the map clean of wards. Playing the vision game, but Dragon being up in around 30 seconds now means that they will just be trying to control the vision around this Dragon pit. And seeing if they had the exact timer on that. Yesterday we actually saw one of the teams arrive a minute late despite just being able to hit tab and being able to see when it's spawning.
I mean, it's not too bad being a minute late to Dragon as long as both teams are. It was a minute early.
Early.
And that is a problem because you lose a minute of complete map pressure, and there is the event horizon. And a flash follows. So now FM could have a chance.
Yep.
But they don't want to engage. Who does want to engage is Pantheon.
Here comes the Pantheon ult, lands right on top of Samwise. He'll be going for the one-on-one in the background, but Billy Fufu and the rest of the team all caught up in his event horizon. Here comes the ultimate again. Will be claiming the kill onto Dan, and Tundra is the only remaining active member in this team fight. Numlock, Zodiac, and Dix Alchemist simply don't have the damage though. They do not have an auto attacker like Chewed Up to eventually take him out, but with the Dark Matter falling and the Eye of Destruction, Tundra will eventually have to make his way out of the fight. Here comes the Omens to slow him down, but does Numlock still have the damage? It's going to be a long chase if he's looking for it.
FM waited a little too long to engage on that, and Tundra's being routed all the way back to top lane. FM waited too long. The event horizon was down. It's only a short cooldown, so as soon as they get to this position and Pantheon ult comes out, it's a strong indicator that that cooldown is coming up. A crescendo locks down 2 damage sources from Choke, but the event horizon follow-up doesn't allow Dan to reposition and take Alchemist away. Nobody can remove him from his ultimate. Chriso falls in the backline, and Tundra, as tanky as he is, does not have the damage to follow up, but nobody took Dragon.
And what I really like from that team fight, Stress, is while they managed to get the pick onto Chewed Up from FM, hit him with the charm, hit him with the full brunt of their burst, Numlock was ahead of the game, used his Omen of Death on him, and he was still up for 10 seconds, and that's not another threat that FM can burn all their bursts on that they already used. So they were basically 5v5 despite that early pick from FM.
Yeah, and it's so difficult to deal with right now. Not only are they having to deal with the massive stun, they have to deal with somebody coming back, and we've already spoken about how typically Yorick would want a hyper carry to bring back, but when you've got a 7-1 and 5 Corki, it's just as good in this phase. We're only 21 minutes into the game. He has a massive amount of damage still in his kit.
This time, FM are taking control around the area. They are first to the punch here, as Numlock is making his way down from the top lane. And we'll be trying to get this poke war on, in which Alchemist is the one-man army currently for Choke. Tundra is trapped in the box of the Dark Horizon. Or the Event Horizon, rather. Again, the Arcano Pulses are coming through, just trying to do all the damage they can onto FM before they inevitably open up the fight with Lasagna. Dan gets caught by the Eye of Destruction and the Arcano Pulse. Here comes the ultimate Happy Feet from Dan. Oh, actually gets away from it. Comes in with the Omen of Death. Gets the kill. Chriso explodes. FM are disintegrating in this fight. And Tundra is on his way out. Samwise also makes a hasty retreat. But Tundra walks back in right into 5 people. And that will be an easy triple kill for Chewed Up.
FM kind of just chased Choke back into the mid lane where Choke reposition and engage. I mean, there is no way Choke aren't going to take these fights. They are ahead. They got the first dragon as well. Now they pick up the second, but FM just kind of baited themselves into fighting there. Dan got caught, and for as good as the beginning of Dan's game was, he's now 2-6-5 and really has not had the same impact that Lasagna has had since.
This is exactly what we were saying at the start of the game. With this pocket pick that Choke were holding all the way through the tournament, Veigar, it's just throwing FM off kilter. This is not the controlled FM that we're used to seeing. They're just all over the place, making sloppy decisions. But in the middle lane, Dan looks for the insect, but a swift flash from Alchemist means he will get out of the way. Here's the event horizon. Here's the rest of the damage coming in from Alchemist, but he will get shut down, making that a 1-for-1 trade.
I mean, that was very close between the two. That almost wasn't even 1-for-1 at all, but I mean, Alchemist, nice flash into Shocking Orb just to lock Dan down, but was not enough. It did use the crescendo though. That is a big factor now. FM can't fight nearly as effectively if they want to take a fight with Choke, which at this point in the game they really shouldn't, because Choke just have so much damage between Xerath and Corki.
Yeah, and what's contributing to that damage in the middle lane is, of course, the death cap that's now being picked up on top of that Morellonomicon. Corki as well picked up those two big items in the form of Triforce and Bloodthirster, and also looking at a pickaxe to go for his next item.
Yeah, indeed. He's going to get that big shield and the lifesteal as well coming out from that Bloodthirster. But just in general, Choke, they started this game out, got the double flashes in the bottom lane, and have never looked back. They had a little bit of a hiccup in that bottom lane when they had 4 people down there. But the fact of the matter is, 10, 1, and 6 Corkis all from the beginning of that bottom lane when they had Lasagna come into the lane at level 2. Very obscure timing, but that's the strength of Pantheon. Those level 2 ganks are insanely strong.
So now Zodiac again just trying to catch someone inside of his trap in the jungle now, making huge aggressive plays into this jungle of FM. Trying to chip away at this middle turret, not doing all that well at the moment. No big objectives for them to move around at the moment, but Dan coming in from the left-hand side, or rather the right-hand side. Lasagna is there to meet him.
Choke's strategy for this game 1 of the series has been so good against FM. They pick a champion that is very difficult to deal with using Veigar support. From there, FM kind of are already thinking about their game. How do we go about this? And then they see the invade, and they're thinking, okay, Lasagna is going to have to get his buff after Krugs. He's going to have to go to one of the top side lanes. So Samwise and Billy, as always, will play aggressive in that bottom lane. You know that they're going to be comfortable on Sona Graves, and they get caught out by that obscure timing. And from there, FM just haven't had the read on the timings out of Choke. Zodiac has been playing, exceptionally well, landing Event Horizon after Event Horizon.
So over the last couple of seconds, Choke have been constantly trying to wail away at the middle turret, but FM are just not breaking. That inner turret shield that it gives to the entire team is too difficult to break, and Choke just decide to all back off, go to the respective lanes, clear out their jungle, and maybe just plan for the next big objective in the form of Dragon or even Baron, which has now spawned onto the map, or even find themselves a pick here in the jungle. Zodiac taking point. Did receive a charm though from Chriso. Doesn't want to be on the receiving end of a pick.
What FM do have going for them is Tundra's lead to begin with.
And Tundra himself is actually going for this dive. Samwise comes through. Here's the ultimate, and Diggs Alchemist explodes here. So will Lasagna, gets caught out by the charm. 2 swift kills, and they're looking for more. Now moving into the middle lane to claim this turret.
Numlock showed in the top lane, and what that meant was FM knew that not only did they have the regular numbers advantage, it definitely wasn't going to be a second shoot up coming into this fight. So they locked down Xerath. Oh, but Chriso.
Oh, Zodiac, here comes the event horizon, lands this time onto Samwise. The flash into the primordial burst is not enough damage to deal with Chriso. Billy will be dropping for the double kill though, and they are getting run down. Here comes another kill onto Chriso. A 3-and-1 so far, as Tundra also gets caught up in the event horizon. Make that a triple. 13, 1, and 7 chewed up in this game.
You make the decision to fight when Yorick isn't there. You see him recall in the top lane and then pick the same fight when you know their then 10, 1, and 7 AD carry wasn't going to be duplicated. This time you know there are going to be potentially 2 in that fight. Choke take just a fight that they would take any day of the week. There was no way FM should have pushed that.
And Choke now are trying to capitalize on that advantage, moving into this Dragon Pit. We have Numlock heading around the side, orbiting this Baron Pit, making sure that Dan can't even get a foot in to try and get the steal down. And this is going to go cleanly to Choke. Here goes the Baron buff, and Dan is unable to contest. The rest of the team is lagging behind. And Choke are pulling ahead in this series. This is the very first game here, but an 8,000 gold advantage is nothing to sniff at.
Baron buff is going to be incredibly difficult to deal with, regardless of the advantage as well, because as good as FM have short sections of wave clear, when you look at Graves, Burst, and Ari, dealing with those new Baron buff minions is just incredibly difficult right now. And FM normally expect a lot of focus to be put on Tundra, but Numlocked in that top lane, although he was behind on CS, was just enough to occupy Tundra for the laning phase. Dan and Lasagna, who's got the read on who? Dan seems to know he's there.
Lasagna, and here comes the charm as well. Lasagna will drop in this bottom jungle, and that will give the upper hand to FM here. That's exactly what they needed, but they need to not get overconfident like we've seen time and time again in this series.
They don't have the read on the Dragon timer, so they pull away from Dragon because they need to keep their inner turret healthy, but they can't even get there in time. Now it's an inhibitor turret that is under a lot of pressure. Oh, that's a great start.
Event Horizon onto 3 players. This could be disastrous for FM. Mini Fufu responds with a crescendo onto 2. Tundra off to the side, taking point in this fight, leading the charge. But it's not the fight that FM want here, because Chriso isn't anywhere remotely close.
Oh, the stun was good, but the damage follow-up, there was too much pressure from Tundra through the side, and you could see Alchemist had to move away from it. Now the Dragon is available, but FM have got to do a long job of sweeping out all of the wards, and that'll put Lasagna there in enough time to contest this Dragon. And at this point in the game, FM are contesting for their first Dragon, whereas Choke have already got 2. So the fact of the matter is, if Choke push like this up in the top lane, an inner tower or damage onto an inhibitor tower for a first Dragon is a big win for Choke.
Yeah, not worth it here from FM, making some very sloppy decisions, resulting in 2 inner turrets going down. The first, the mid one, next to top turret. And you think back to maybe 5 minutes ago, Stress, how much Choke was struggling with sieging turrets. Well, if the enemy team isn't there to contest, then they won't be able to do anything about it.
And of course, with that improved recall, Choke are going to be back out on the map to take control of the jungle from FM as well. They'll be back out pretty quickly here, and FM's wards are about to get completely taken away. Numlock just took one out in the top side of the jungle. It's going to happen again as soon as they push out. And from here, Choke, they can just take the same fights again. They can just stun a couple of people from FM, burst them down with Shoot Up and Alchemist. What can FM do to combat that? You have to say it's try and bait the stun, but right now Zodiac is throwing that out so often that it's incredibly difficult to deal with. It's just under 14-second cooldown for potentially an entire team to get stunned up. So in an extended fight, you can hit that twice.
And in an extended fight, it's going to be what comes down to how stacked you are in terms of items, because take a look at the item board. There is a full item difference on pretty much every member between Choke and FM. Choke have an extra item on all of their carries.
And the fact of the matter is, as tanky as Tundra is going to be, if the rest of his team are down in the respawn chamber, it doesn't matter. Tundra doesn't have the damage. He can't physically take on multiple people from Choke in this game when the rest of his team aren't there. So, you know, you can be a Dr. Mundo as much as you want to be, but it's a tough spot now for FM eSports.
So the siege now coming in, the AoE shots from that cannon minion, making short work of those minions in the middle lane. Tundra is actually splitting off from the pack and pushing very far away from the base. He does have his teleport, however, but is going to be 4 seconds away from the fight as soon as the fight is initiated.
Baron buff did just run out though, so it's on Choke to push up and siege.
But here's the teleport coming in from Tundra, but the tower's already down to 50% HP, and Choke really haven't made a huge push onto the turret. They've just been tapping away at it, and FM don't have a response.
There's not really a lot that FM can do. They risk just getting Event Horizons as soon as they step forward, and from there Alchemist has enough damage to just burst down anybody, but it's going to be a long, slow process that is going to happen until one team makes a mistake. Here comes the ultimate.
And here comes the Grand Skyfall coming right down on top of Tundra and Billy as well. He will be dropping, but this is a very deep dive. The laser is chunking down the health bar from Lasagna. He gets taken out, and Samwise, oh, the ultimate is raining in. The last shot lands onto Samwise, but that was a 2-for-2 trade. Not the end of the world, but what is the end of the world is the middle turret going down for Choke.
Dan got a great kick right at the beginning of that fight, but Samwise had, Shoot Up had already been ultimate from Numlock. There was already a second Corki in that fight, and it was just so much damage that regardless of the fact that the kick into Crescendo lined up perfectly, they didn't get Shoot Up in the end of it all. And you have to take care of a carry that's now 14-1-8. He cannot be allowed to stay alive in that fight, and it's just because of the amount of pressure and control that was being put on by Numlock. When we roll this replay, you can see Pantheon Ultimate comes in. Here's the kick Crescendo, lands on Shoot Up, but the Valkyrie, nobody could disrupt him from getting out of that fight. Numlock right away into the backline, even pulls Tundra alongside with him. And there's just not enough damage from FM to deal with all of the damage sources from Choke.
And Choke, despite making these brute force plays, which you feel won't work out with the initial initiation, but FM are just too weak. That is literally the story right now, Stress. A 10,000 gold advantage translated into items, translated into those map objectives. They are being pushed back on all fronts, and Choke have not showed any signs of weakness.
They haven't showed any signs of letting up, no. And right now, 45 seconds before Baron spawns, a minute and a half until Dragon. That would be Choke's third, or FM's second, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, FM have one, Choke have two currently. Keep a updated timer on that, just make sure we are all reminded. But FM, they're on the back foot. Inhibitor is down now, and they've lost control of their jungle. You can take a look at the vision, but top lane Tundra.
Look at the damage coming into Tundra. The Event Horizon and the ultimate, the Rite of the Arcane comes in from Alchemist. Vinny gets locked up as well, just wandering through the jungle. He'll be dropping. Chriso backs off to his base, but he doesn't have any more charges of the Spirit Rush. The jungler falls, and this is just dominoes falling over for FM here. Choke will take everyone down. Here comes the surrender boat. FM are done with this game.
I can't blame them at this point. We said when Tundra was 3-0-2, I think it was, or at one point in the game he had a pretty strong lead up in that top lane, that it would be difficult for Choke to deal with him because they didn't have enough damage, perhaps. The fact of the matter is, when you get Corki and Xerath fed like that, you certainly have enough damage, and you've got to say that the strategy coming out from Choke right now, picking that Veigar support, unorthodox and very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, but he had 21 assists in that game. 20 assists, 1 kill. His kill participation was insane, and it was all based around that pick. The carries got fed, as you mentioned before, but this is a pocket pick, and we've seen how pocket picks have worked before. And it doesn't always work out if you do it series after series. Do they have anything more in their back pocket? That's the question, because over a prolonged series like a best of 5, it's only going to work once.
And it gave them a lot of trouble in that game as well. So will they ban it out? What do they let through?
Yeah.
Could potentially give another very strong champion over to Choke.
Yeah, so we're going to be sending it over now to the analyst desk to break down that game in greater detail.
Thanks a lot, guys. We are back on the desk after a very convincing first game for Choke eSports, or Choke Gaming, sorry, rather. FM got to take a step back. They clearly understood that by the end of that game it was not much more they could do. As soon as Tundra was caught, it was game over. But what gave Choke such a demanding lead? Why did they do so well in that early game?
Picks and bans. Like, you have to take it back to picks and bans. The pocket Veigar coming out right at the last moment. It's something that we know Zodiac can bring out, and if you ban out his Morgana, it opens up a huge champion pool for him. He's got a lot of champions he can go down onto, and then Veigar, just bringing that out against a very squishy bot lane in Sona, and then having the extra pressure coming in as well in the early game. You and I were talking about it, Strike. That's what won them the game.
And it's not the first time we've seen this FM versus Choke matchup with a Veigar on Choke's side. This was a game where Veigar set up picks. He caught loads of people out. That stun falls up, and we know how good Choke are chaining that CC. The Veigar stun goes down. The Xerath stun comes out. The Pantheon stun comes out. There's just so much CC, and if one person gets caught, and if that's their key target, they just get exploded.
So are we looking for a Veigar ban in the next game, or is it purely that the other champions that were previously banned are so important, they have to adjust their play against a Veigar?
I feel like the Veigar pick, because we know DX Alchemist also plays Veigar in the mid lane, and he plays it rather well. So I think they're going to need to ban it out, or they need to choose more champions or be more cautious of where they tread. You cannot get caught out with that Veigar, because that Veigar on the enemy team, it almost forces them to itemize a certain way. People need to buy those merc treads just to counter one champion. So that one champion itself forces them to build one item.
Oh, definitely. I think we learned a lot about Choke Gaming's mentality in this game as well. They aren't going to sit back on their laurels. You ban out Morgana, Zodiac could quite easily have gone to a Janna or a Nami or something like that, gone for a safe support. But we see it even from when Lasagna got caught out in First Blood. Got caught out, it's quite easy for a team to say, what on earth are you doing, why'd you get caught out? But we look at how proactive they were as they went into the mid and late game. They just were like, okay, this has happened, let's see what we can do about it. They gave him the Krugs, they went for the early invaders of bot lane as well, and it shows how well Choke are at reacting to things that happen in the game.
Their reactionary play is just like that. They spotted Lasagna get caught, and then they come out, and bot lane, Corki and Choke's bot lane, Corki and the Veigar, they go and stop Billy Fufu and Samwise doing the Gromp.
Yeah.
And that prevents them from doing it. They take a bit of damage. They take a lot of damage, actually. They come to lane, they go even. However, Billy Fufu and Samwise are a bit, in terms of health, a bit lower.
FM had some good moments in their game too, though. Nothing to take them away from them. What do we want to see more of? What did they do well, especially? And what do they need to keep doing while changing their late game?
I think we saw, as we got into the later portion of the game, how good FM can be at teamfights. They dived a mid lane in a tower and got a couple of kills out of it, and then they just stayed for a little bit too long and got cleaned up by Choke. But FM are very, very good at going in for those fights and team fighting and chaining the CC like you were talking about, being able to pick off champions if they decide to do it. Their communication in team fights is on point as well, and that's actually surprising because the way they communicate is just one person shouts over everyone else and they listen to that, but it works for them. If FM can do that a little bit earlier and perhaps shut down Lasagna as he goes for that early pressure, then we'll be able to see the true FM come to the forefront.
And you saw which jungle is shown this game, especially in the early game. Dan's Lee Sin. It's a very scary champion to give Dan. You saw his early pressure. His first item after the Trailblazer was his mobbies. He went top lane, got a kill top lane against the Numlock's Yorick, sorry. Came bot lane, came for the counter gank, got another kill. And it's just the pressure it involves. This is what you want to be doing as an early game jungler. As a Lee Sin, you want to be ganking, and with those mobbies, he can do that.
So, that's our Game 1 feedback. Now we're going to Game 2. Of course, everyone's going to switch sides, have a slightly different pick ban order. We'll see if these changes in the bans do happen or not. But first, we have a quick 3.5 minute break, and we'll see you on the other